for the Red Lion Hotel site. We will be holding a hybrid public meeting which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia per the Planning Commission's electronic meeting policy adopted on July 7th, 2022. Members of the SPRC subgroup for the Red Lion Site Plan Amendment are participating both here in person and virtually through electronic means. At this time, I'd like to orient everyone to our hybrid environment and cover a few specifics about how tonight's meeting will run. Members of the public may attend the meeting here in person or electronically by using the Microsoft Teams link provided on the SPRC webpage, the project webpage, the county's events calendar, and the email notification sent to SPRC email subscribers. Additionally, there is a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. For our subgroup members joining virtually, if anyone loses internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you are called upon. Turn off sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. For our virtual attendees using Microsoft Teams, please turn off your video feed. I will address when it is appropriate to turn it on in a moment. The Microsoft Office Teams meeting chat is active to serve two purposes: for SPRC subgroup members who need technical assistance and for members of the public to add their names to the list for public comment, which will be taken at the end of the meeting. The Teams chat should not be used for discussion. Those who were planning to provide public comment will still need to do so at the end of the meeting, as the chat will not serve as that opportunity. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public comment period. If subgroup members participating virtually wish to be recognized to speak on an item during the course of the meeting, please turn your video feed and raise your virtual hand in Teams. I will monitor the video feeds that are on as an indicator of who would like to speak. If subgroup members are participating via phone today without the video option, please announce your name and group you are representing now, and I will verbally check in to see if you wish to be recognized, as you do not have the video feed option. For our members of the public who would like to provide feedback and comment, you will be called on to speak at the end of the meeting and will be allotted 2 to 3 minutes to speak on tonight's agenda item. The speaking time allotted will depend on the number of speakers we have this evening. If you wish to speak, please enter your name in the meeting chat for virtual attendees, or provide staff with your name if in person, and you will be added to the speakers list. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirement. So before we start, why don't we go around the table and introduce ourselves. Kate, and who you're representing?
Kate Donahue, Forestry and Natural Resources Commission.
Steve Campbell, I'm representing Ray Farm this evening.
Leslie Arminsky, the Belvedere.
Peter Robertson, Planning Commission.
Heather Orr, the applicant.
Nicholas Cummings, Walsh Palucci, NBC Attorney.
Leah Bagley, Chair and Planning.
Matt Pfeiffer, Arlington County Planning Staff.
Jane Kim, DES Staff.
Joe McIntyre, Climate Change, Energy and Environment Commission.
Chris Slatt from the Transportation Commission.
Jim Lantelli, Planning Commission.
And although not at the table, you want to go around the room and just say who you are?
Yep, Ryan Orr, applicant, and David Orr, applicant.
And back here?
Roland Baker from the Belvedere.
Ken Groom-Castle, Blue Belvedere.
Hector Mercado, county staff.
Chris Cabot with Wells and Associates for Transportation. Bernie Citrusito, Walsh Palucci.
Sarah Downing, OBS Landscape Architecture.
Kevin Pennington, GGD Architecture.
Wonderful. And do we have anybody? Commissioner Berkey, do you want to, Eric, you want to introduce yourself?
A lot of people actually.
Yep, I regret not being able to make it in person. Eric Berkey, Planning Commission.
And who else is there? Hold on just a second. Eric, goodness.
Are you looking for folks on the SPRC?
Yes, on the roster. I wanted commissioners first and then anybody else.
Sure.
Oh,
Hello,
yes.
everybody. I was just going to say, Mr. Corns, I believe, is here representing the PAC tonight.
Yes.
And my name's Adam Watson. I'm sorry I'm not there. I'm under the weather, and you don't want to have what I have. So
No, we truly appreciate you coming to us from a distance.
No problem.
Adam, you want to take it away now?
Yes, sure,
Thank you.
gladly. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right. So this is the site plan review committee meeting. Will be our last SPRC meeting for 1501 Arlington Boulevard. This is the Red Lion Hotel site. And when this comes forward for action, we'll also have a GLUP amendment and a rezoning, which we'll speak more about a little bit later in the presentation. So this presentation, I'm going to cover the site location briefly, just to orient us again, some policy guidance to help set a framework for us to work from. Talk about the housing component of this, specifically the Special Affordable Housing Protection District, and move into community benefits and then transportation. Lastly, I'll talk about process and next steps. And I know that Nick and the OR team have greater detail to go into in their presentation on landscaping and biophilia as well. So just to orient us all again, this site is at 1501 Arlington Boulevard. The site is accessed off of Fairfax Drive, and just to the west is North Pierce Street. The site is comprised of sort of three existing buildings or structures. It's the Williamsburg Apartments furthest to the west, the Ellis Arms Apartments, and then the existing Red Lion Hotel. So our policy guidance for this site is pretty straightforward. It's based on the Roslyn Station Area Plan Addendum, which was adopted in 1992. This plan doesn't have any site-specific guidance, but it does include a couple overall objectives that we're using as staff to evaluate this application. So creating a more urban form where buildings relate well to one another, increasing opportunities for housing, and providing an integrated system of transportation that emphasizes a multimodal approach. This site, for those who are curious, was outside of the Roslyn Sector Plan Addenda, or excuse me, the Roslyn Sector Plan update, which was done in 2015. In addition, we also have our off-street parking guidelines, which were adopted by the county board in 2017, and recommends a parking ratio as low as 0.4 spaces per dwelling unit for market rate buildings on this site. Next, I'm going to talk about the Special Affordable Housing Protection District. This is a slide that we used for our online engagement, but just to set up again what the SAHPD is. It's an overlay district on the GLUP map. It's shown as Note 13. And the purpose is to ensure that existing low and moderate income apartment units are replaced on sites where density is planned for 3.24 FAR or higher when redevelopment occurs or is requested. In this case, this site plan amendment we have before us is triggering the SAHPD because it would bring forward the demolition of the Williamsburg and Ellis Arms apartments. Those two buildings are essentially carbon copies of each other in terms of the number of units and bedrooms. Each has 14 one-bedrooms and 14 two-bedrooms, so there's 28 units and 42 bedrooms. And again, the proposed density here is above 3.24 FAR at 4.59 FAR. So the way this policy is applied is typically through replacement of bedrooms on a one-for-one basis on site. So the applicant's proposal, we're pleased to bring forward, I think is a great package, and it would include on-site CAFs, so 24 units and 42 bedrooms total. You can see the sub-bullets under this break down the bedroom mix. We have 7 one-bedrooms, 16 units that are 2 bedrooms, and then 1 3-bedroom unit as well. So this proposal matches exactly the existing number of bedrooms that are on site today on a one-for-one basis. And it also provides a majority family-sized units. You'll notice that the overall number of units is less than exists today, but that's because we're getting a higher proportion of 2-bedroom units, and we're getting a 3-bedroom unit as well. So lastly, this last bullet is really a procedural thing. There will be a GLUP amendment. Likely the request to advertise for this amendment will come forward, I'd say next month in December. And this would be to add Note 13 on the GLUP map for the Williamsburg apartment site. And just to note that we already did this the same exercise back in 2019 when the previous site plan amendment for this site was approved. So just want to briefly touch on tenant relocation because I believe it came up through the online engagement and also in our SPRC discussions, but it is a condition of the site plan ordinance. It occurs after approval of the site plan, and essentially prior to any demolition or land disturbance activity, applicant has to submit a residential relocation plan. And the applicant is currently working with our staff on that plan. And in fact, Hector Mercado has joined us here tonight from housing staff and would be able to take any questions if there are any on this part of the overall process and project. Lastly, I have the link up here. This is really just for reference for those who want to learn more about the county's relocation program. This link will take you to our webpage that has more comprehensive information. Okay, so moving on to talk a little bit about community benefits. This is obviously things that are done to earn density above what is permitted by the zoning ordinance in the GLUP, which in this case is 3.24 FAR. It's defined in the zoning ordinance and the county board can approve it. And the proposal would be for on-site affordable dwelling units, fulfilling the SAHPD, as I just mentioned, 24 units and the 42 bedrooms on site. And then in addition to that, the applicant is participating in our green building incentive program, the lead goal 0.35 FAR level. So that would include at least 10% energy optimization, post-occupancy Energy Star score certification of at least 80, bird-friendly materials, EV parking at 4%, 15% EV ready, and a number of other baseline requirements as well. I believe the applicant will have some further details to run through on their slides as well in terms of what they're going to be committing to in terms of the options on the Green Building Incentive Program. Turning to transportation, so I'm going to handle this in basically 3 segments: access, parking, and then talk briefly about the sidewalks and the streetscape. So access, vehicular access for the site, and really all access, is entirely off of Fairfax Drive. So you can see from the site plan image on the right-hand side of the screen, just moving left to right here, we have our bike room and secondary pedestrian access closest to North Pierce Street. There are some transformer bays about halfway down, as well as a loading dock. The main lobby there is central to the building, as this building, stretches quite a distance across Fairfax Drive. And then lastly, the garage, which a portion of which, of course, is being preserved from the existing building. And again, all of this access occurring here on Fairfax Drive. So just wanted to reiterate that there is no access from the Belvedere's driveway on the north side of the site. I know we've received some comments about that online and maybe through SPRC as well. So just wanted to highlight that. In terms of parking, again, vehicles be accessing the garage off of Fairfax Drive. The proposed ratio is 0.57 spaces per dwelling unit. So that's 255 spaces. And this, again, just to call back to the off-street parking guidelines I highlighted a minute ago, is consistent with those guidelines. Of course, they could go down to 0.4 here and still be consistent for a market rate building. Obviously, there's going to be some affordable housing on site as well. So overall, staff thinks that this is consistent with our guidelines and we support the parking ratio. The sidewalks are going to be a 6-foot minimum clear path. It does exceed that on North Pierce Street, for instance. There's, I believe, just over 7-foot concrete sidewalk and just over 5 feet for the planting strip. On Fairfax Drive, you have about 6.5. I suppose the width varies as you're going down the length of Fairfax Drive, but about 6.5 from where this section was taken, with a 5-foot landscape strip at the back of the curb. And then closer to the building, you're going to have, especially as you get further east, about a 6-foot landscape strip for plantings that are adjacent or abutting the building face. I'm just going to quickly go over this and just say we've done some robust community engagement for this, calling back to our online engagement back in July. Outreach to obviously the affected civic associations and neighboring condominiums and apartments. We've also done engagement webpage related flyers and our e-newsletter and our social media. We did a bilingual flyer the Williamsburg apartments in both English and Spanish as well. Okay, so moving on to just talk about the process a little bit. We're here tonight to talk about some project updates that the applicant's going to show in their presentation, and then we'll talk about the SAHPD, transportation, landscaping, and biophilia, other community benefits, which include sustainability. The applicant has a slide to touch briefly on construction, and then any other topics that the SPRC wants to cover. We don't yet know when this item will move forward to the Planning Commission and the County Board for action, but we anticipate that that could occur as early as January of next year. And that is it from me. Feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is here, and Nia and Eric's information is here as well. So thank you all.
Thank you, Adam. We'll hear now from the applicant.
You can. Matt, are you able to pull up our presentation?
Matt, I can run it.
Oh, great.
I wasn't sure it was running Microsoft
He
Teams.
doesn't
No
feel good?
problems.
Right on the ball.
He's all right. Yep, he's got everything covered.
Tyler's going to kick us off, and then KGD will take it from there, and other team members following.
Is it showing up for everybody?
Yes,
Yeah, it's a little blurry.
a little
but
blurry.
For some reason.
There we go.
There, now.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. I'm Tyler Orr with Orr Partners, and I'm really excited to present to you guys all the changes we've made since the last SBRC meeting. We really made some big changes and really took to heart a lot of the things we heard in the last SBRC. And three of the biggest things that we noticed was the entrance on North Pierce and Arlington Boulevard, which we've really enhanced, and then also the main entrance. It was kind of getting lost in our long, expansive facade. So we've really updated that with some unique biophilic elements. And then lastly, it was like the starky, blocky nature of the overall facade. And we've added some more higher end materials and really changed the facade to really brighten it up and give a good view as you're going down Route 50. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin Pennington from KGD Architecture to kind of walk us through all the design changes.
Sure. Thank you. You could go to the next slide. So we might want to go. Okay, yeah. This is the corner at North Pierce and Fairfax Drive, and you can see the currently proposed on the left, and then what we're proposing to change it to on the right. We've pulled the facade back in at the secondary entrance into the building to alleviate pinch point that we were seeing at this corner. And there's a lot of grade change that's happening through here, but we know that we can pull this back. We'll have to accommodate some of the grade change as this transitions from Fairfax Drive up to the steeper North Pierce Street. Go to the next slide, please. This is the previous slide. You can see some of the blockiness that we heard in the first SPRC hearing as a concern. If you can go to the next slide, you'll see how we address that. So we took the materials, the red material that you see, we pulled it to the far side, to the west, over towards North Pierce Street, and we changed that material to a Nichiha panel. It's a higher end, horizontally expressed fiber cement panel, has a very high end finish on it. You can also see that we worked on the landscaping a little bit and just showed that a little bit more true to form of what we expected to be. If you could go to the next slide. And this is the what was originally proposed, and you can see the darker gray materials, and the brick was stretching up 2 floors and running to the east as you're looking to the east, and 4 major towers before you got to the entrance that is probably 3/4 of the way down the block in this image, and that's where it opens up to the pool deck just beyond the walk coming over Arlington Boulevard. Next slide, please. And this is proposed changes. We also have some higher end resolution imagery that I think shows this a little bit better, but the red panels that you see there is the Nichiha, and that we're trying to do an interplay between the 2 materials. So it's predominantly a red and a gray building. And the gray that you see in the middle is masonry that has now been brought up to the 7th floor. So we pulled it 4 floors higher than it was previously. And we're trying to use the length of the building to our advantage by playing with the massing and pulling them into each other. And on this corner, you can see better how we wrapped it and we created a more interesting balcony that goes up to the top. Next slide. This is the original look at the main entrance, and some of the comments that we had is, well, we don't really like the portal. Then we heard that we do like the portal. We played around with our, how we wanted to approach this this canopy. We've always had the thought of having a landscaped canopy there, but it felt like it was minimalist for the length of the building. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that we've extended the canopy quite a bit longer now. So it stretches about 40 feet from the entrance. And we're showing some of the landscaping a little bit more true to form where it's draping over the edge. You can see the landscaped canopy over the main entrance. You'll see some more imagery of that later on. And we're also showing the windows there a little bit better. So it's really announcing this main entrance, I think, better than it was before. And above that 3rd floor is a stainless steel panel that goes all the way up to the roof. So it's a major feature that's announcing the entrance there. Next slide. This is the first of the professional renderings. You can see the materials a little bit better and get a sense of how we're handling the massing, trying to give a little bit of distance and materiality change between the red panels and the gray panels. And you can see that play happening a little bit more there. You can also see the steepness of the hill going up North Fairfax. Next slide. And this is the half bird's eye view looking down at the Minotee courtyard. So that there's a pool deck on there and some cabanas. And you can see it's planted along the whole edge there on the 3rd floor that overlooks the streetscape. And yeah, we think it's going to be a really striking view as you come down Arlington Boulevard out of DC and you come upon the building. I believe that's it. Next slide.
Yep, we're going to go on to traffic and transportation with Chris Cabot here from Wells and Associates. It was a little difficult for some folks in this room maybe to see the detail on the landscape, almost a little deck above the front entrance. So we can maybe zoom in on that later. But I might be moving too long, so let's go for it, Chris.
Yeah, and Adam went through a number of things that I was going to cover. So I just wanted to highlight a few things on the site access. There on the left side of the screen or the west side of the building is the bike room. And that does have direct access to Fairfax Drive. And the primary residential lobby is essentially right where the crosswalk is to get over to the new trail that'll be on the south side of Fairfax Drive. And also that pedestrian bridge that would take you across Arlington Boulevard. We could go to the next slide. This one was talked about already, the bike parking and the vehicle parking. So we could go to the next one. We did do a MMTA, a transportation analysis of vehicles, bikes, peds. We looked at several intersections along Fairfax Drive, one up on Wilson to get the traffic coming from the east and west. Staff reviewed it. What I did want to highlight is that when you take into consideration the existing hotel and apartments, this proposal is adding about 40 peak hour trips to the road network. That's about one car every 1.5 minutes or so. Next slide. This was just to give a visual of all the transit that is in the area and how we are planned for the multimodal approach. The site is small in this larger thing, but it's that red along Arlington Boulevard there. And I think you all know that there used to be a bus line that went along Fairfax Drive that's no longer operating, but there are buses that are on North Roads and obviously on Clarendon and Wilson. And the stops relative to our site are about somewhere around a quarter mile from the site. And you can see obviously Roslyn Metro up to the northeast of us. And that's about less than a half mile, about 0.4 miles from our site. Next slide, please. We did just show, I just wanted to show the bike connections here as well. Again, the county project will be on the south side of Fairfax Drive. That's well planned because that obviously does not conflict with our turning movements in and out of the driveway and the loading. And then it'll also connect to bike facilities along, I think that's Queen Street, that will go up to Clarendon and Wilson, and then further west to the courthouse metro. And then obviously we'll have our connections to the east to the Roslyn Metro, and then across into, well, to the south to the trails that go, I guess, along the GW Parkway. I did want to just add before we get into sustainability that we, for the multimodal thing, we will obviously be having the transportation management plan that is in preliminary stage right now, and it'll be finalized as we go through the process and post-approval.
It'll be the standard sort of benefits you see with every site plan, fare cards, other things like that. I'm going to cover sustainability briefly here just to save time because we have a lot to talk about on other topics before I close. But we do have our consultant online who is ready to answer detailed questions during discussion, and I do anticipate they'll have some. Obviously, we are committing to the 0.35 FAR lead bonus, as Adam articulated. That's going to include heat island reduction, all electric appliances. That's something we don't necessarily see in every single building. Some folks still stick with, gas ranges, other things like that. I will say, in anticipation of questions, we don't have a full electric building. We have a backup generator that's gas and some other, HVAC systems that are still gas due to really just kind of the state of the market. We can discuss that in more further detail if anyone is interested. Reusing the garage is a big deal for environmental issues for sustainability. There's a lot of embodied concrete in there, a lot of carbon in that concrete, and being able to reuse that is just fantastic. I'm going to go to the next slide. So from a community benefit perspective, and again, we're going to meet the baseline requirements. Bird-friendly glass, 8 to 35 feet, we are doing that. I think that we showed you a lot of the biophilic features, which is really something we're excited about. EV charging, we are committing to the requirement. It's 4% and about 15% for capacity. High Energy Star score. And then the extra items that we are currently contemplating, which are the choices among those options for the 0.35 FAR tier, would be the building life cycle impact reduction, advanced energy metering, and we're going to do the procurement of offsite solar and renewable energy. And that's what we're considering right now. The final decisions on all of that is made during the permitting and construction process. From a community benefits perspective, obviously, like Adam said, we're going to be doing the affordable housing on site that is substantial. And obviously, this 0.35 FAR bonus. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Sarah, who's going to talk to you about landscape.
So we wanted to zoom back out a little bit here and look at where 1501 Arlington Boulevard is situated within the neighborhood. It has a capacity to make some landscape connections to other small parks in the region, and also activate Fairfax Drive along with this bikeway improvement planned along that corridor. Next slide. And just a reminder of the existing surrounding landscape. Some of this was originally touched upon by KGD in the first SPRC, but we have a predominantly private-owned drive north of the site, across from, on the south side of the road, there's pretty significant slopes, most of which are steeper than can really be stabilized. Overgrown and invasive vegetation and some invasive trees and trees in poor condition. North Pierce Street is predominantly a 15% slope, which is way more than can be made accessible. And the Fairfax Drive sidewalk in its existing condition is only about 5 feet wide with pretty limited canopy coverage, as you can see at the east end. Though there's some beautiful mature willow oak trees on site, most of them have really poor subsurface conditions. Some of that is due to the garage below, but there's girdling roots visible at the surface. And again, with future changes in pedestrian and bike facilities, usership of this corridor could increase. Next slide. And this is a quick look at how landscape opportunities evolved based on the shape of the architecture and the form of the building. You can see a lower second-story courtyard that evolved into a pool terrace and social space for the development. This was also a way for us to really connect with the public realm and provide some visibility to those passing by below. A shady, central, inward-facing reflective space that draws from the sense of being enveloped by planting and trees akin to Hillside Park to the north. And at the roof terrace, a focus really on views outwards towards local Virginia landmarks, DC's monumental core, and then western courtyard, which is focused, which is almost entirely planted and providing stormwater management for the project. And then native and adaptive bioretention planting around perimeter along the north and west side. This is also showing some intent for the re-envisioning of the streetscape experience with substantial street tree planting and biophilic elements of the facade. Next slide. And this is an overall plan of where the landscape stands now and the articulation of the interior courtyard spaces and roof terrace. Just to go back to the 16th Street landscape, this area will be restored by integrating a retaining wall that will allow for creating more gradual slopes along the road. Invasive trees and ground covers, as well as trees in poor condition, will be removed. And healthy trees and native and adaptive trees that won't be disturbed by the wall work will be protected. And next slide. Oh, next slide. And the public expression of the project along Fairfax Drive is really the most critical space to ensure we're engaging visitors, tenants, passersby, in nature and the surrounding regional ecosystems. We've highlighted some landscape elements here that support this engagement, including the planted entrance canopy with some apertures that will allow light to penetrate down through, as well as planting to weep over. Special paving located below these areas to tie into allowing you to look up at what's happening overhead. Trellises along the facade that will allow twining vine growth at the entrance. As PGD had presented previously, we have this architectural mesh screen at the loading dock that's very evocative and nature inspired, and pretty significant opportunities for elongated streetscape planting zones that will incorporate primarily native plantings. Next slide. And this is a quick look at the representative plant palette for the canopy. We have plants like phlox and juniper that can weep over the edges and weep through apertures in the canopy itself. Ornamental grasses, which are very important to any palette for structure and wildlife value and full season interest. A lot of pollinator-friendly species and some woody plant material that would be tolerant of shallower soil such as. Next slide. This is a sample enlargement of the streetscape showing the east end of the project where we have a little bit more space between the back of the curb and building facade. We have incorporated a raised planter where there's limited space below the sidewalk due to the garage below, and incorporated perennials, grasses, shrubs, and even some ornamental trees, and created little alcoves for seating. Again, this shows longer planters, or street tree planters. The street tree planters range from 21 feet to 50 feet in length, so we can really offer a lot of open soil to the street trees and provide a significant planted buffer along the streetscape. These street trees will also be provided soil below the sidewalk in the form of continuous soil panels. Next slide. And then we've put together a few pages to just show the character of some of these courtyards. So this is the east courtyard, that's our pool terrace. It's really defined by raised planters that are organizing the movement around the terrace as well as usage patterns. We need to accommodate a large number of people for a pool terrace and seating, but we've still been able to incorporate a lot of planting, especially at the edge. The most significant planting, and Kevin had alluded to this in talking about the building, is along the parapet edge, where we would have a raised planter that would have a variety of ornamental grasses and perennials and plants that would be visible from below, as well as weeping plants. Next slide. And the character for the central courtyard is really defined by more lush, shade-tolerant planting beds that are mounded both for soil, for the trees, but also to provide some separation between private terraces at the edge and the terrace in the center. We will be incorporating a mixture of native tree species here. Next slide. And then what we're calling the observation deck at the 9th floor. This is focused more on views outwards. We have a lot of open space at the southeast corner where you would be able to see out towards DC. And seating niches, raised planters with native and adaptive drought-tolerant planting that would be able to handle more exposed conditions up here, and some growth stations for active use. That's all we had.
Thank you.
Very briefly, we have a single slide on construction and staging. Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, this just shows kind of how our construction will lay out. One thing I do want to note is for our neighbors at the Belvedere, we are kind of planning to have a little bit of access to close one lane down in case to restore that back area where we're going to be disturbing. It's just an access thing. It would only be like one lane and very temporarily. It wouldn't be during the whole entire construction. It'd be when we need to get back there to restore that area.
And of course, we'll talk about that offline.
All right, well, thank you. So we're going to just go right into our discussion. We're going to start first with project updates. So comments, questions, anything about the project updates significant since our first meeting?
I'll go.
Leo.
All right, well, first of all, in our capacity as volunteers, it's always fun and always encouraging when there's positive feedback, right? Like when we give you some information and then we see actual change. So thank you for changing some of the architecture and some of the massing. I think the building's much more successful now. I think it's got this interesting sort of almost tripartite aspect. I think, let me be a little bit, let me see if I can be organized here. It just works, right? I think you have successfully brought the beginning with the end. You didn't do that sudden change of color and palette, and the whole thing sort of ties together. You have this beginning, you have the middle, and then you have the end, and then you have like, it further breaks down into like within the facade. So it's quite successful and quite pleasing. To get to the negative part, that rounded corner is, I think, needs a little bit more work, to be totally honest. And the first thing that I looked when I saw that was I went to the rest of the building to see where's the precedent, where does it relate back? You know, there's no tie back. I cannot find an anchor for that sort of detail, that architectural move. So I think at the ground level is much better, right? It makes more sense. You're seeing where the entrance is. People coming down the street will easily enter the building. So I think that is much more successful. I think the rounded edge, it's just too unprecedented and sort of came out of nowhere, you know, was sort of my reaction to it. It's not a bad detail. I just really had a hard time sort of justifying it being in there. And then finally, I think just a little bit of the proportion on the windows and the doors on that balcony, you know, that the proximity of the clerestory over the door and how that gets the underside of that deck. I just think that corner is much closer than was the previous one. It's much more, I think, noble in a sort of non-symmetrical way, which I think also liberated you to treat the corner, you know, and react to the grades. So I think you're closer to the solution. I'm just not convinced on that, you know, introduction of a new sort of jargon, a new element, you know, with that curve. So that's the only thing that really held me back. And I think a little bit of the proportion on the fenestrations and the doors. Since I'm talking, I will go on. I think react a little bit to the landscape. The canopy, I think, is a very interesting idea. You know, it all comes down to viability. So I'm interested on, and you did mention soil depth, so I'm really glad to hear that you're thinking on that sort of application aspect. I think, you know, access and maintenance and, you know, all of that stuff needs to be worked out so people can get up there, do the plants and all that easily without making a big production and or not letting it sort of fall by the wayside, because it's always, you know, deferred maintenance is always the worst thing to happen.
We can talk more about landscape in a minute.
Yeah, that's why I was checking to make sure, but yeah, sorry, I'm going out of order. So I'll stop. I think I was reacting to the changes and I was very pleased with the changes is the bottom line. And just the curve, I'm not sold.
Thank you. Yes.
I have a question because at the last SPRC, we talked about making the north side more interesting. I mean, you may have done something, but you didn't show it.
Yes, we actually changed, and Kevin can probably talk through it a little bit, but we changed and made it a little more interesting. If we have some backup slides, I think we can show.
Adam, can you put that back up there?
Yeah, just stand by while I try to find that.
Yeah, because it's in that other deck that I sent you earlier in the week.
I have it, just sorry. Just if you guys want to speak to it while I'm looking for it, please feel free.
Yeah, no worries, but we did add some interest to that as well. We didn't just focus on the one side. We did change some interest, and it's hard for me to kind of describe it without showing it, but it has more, what's the word?
Texture?
Texture, yeah.
I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll like a lot when you know, more than what we showed before. It's kind of a randomized pattern on the facade just to give it a lot more interest as you drive down 16th Street. So it's not going to be the monolith that you were seeing previously.
So while we're waiting for that, oh, here we go. Just about there. Okay, hold on.
Let me see if I can switch to the north elevation here.
Okay. Thank you, Adam.
If it will let me. Hang on, it's got a mind of its own.
And Adam, I've now pulled it up on my screen, so if you need a little help, you can tap me in.
Here we go.
There it is.
You're going to want to zoom in, Adam, if you can. In general, way to full screen these presentations because it's been hard to see from the end of the room here.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to see what's happening with that, but if you are able to zoom in on the lower one, you can start to see the randomness in the patterning on that north facade.
So Matt, if you want to, I can let you try. This is a full screen from where I sit, so I can't zoom in any further. But if you want me to let Matt try to share his screen, I can do that as well.
I think I've actually got it by blowing it up on the big screen.
Yeah, you did a good job.
Okay.
Scroll down now,
Yeah, no, that's.
because you're on the current elevation.
Okay, that's the updated. No, that's-
Yes, that's right. That's the north
No,
elevation.
this is the right
The
one.
proposed,
This
yeah,
is
that's
the
the
right one,
proposed,
yes.
yes.
So we introduced some new elements, tried to make it a little bit more.
Oh,
No.
Just when
Well,
you
we
thought you
just
had it.
caught a
Oh
glimpse.
no, what happened? Sorry.
All that excitement.
There it is.
Oh, it's just a.
It's the bottom line, bottom one. You want
Yeah,
to
so
zoom in
The
on.
bottom is-
Yeah.
And I'm being
The
told
top
that
is
if
the
you-
original on the
if
bottom.
somebody closes the participant window pane, it's gonna help a bit. If you just put the X in the corner there.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
There we go. A little bit better.
talk fast.
Okay,
Case
go
is
for it,
over.
Kevin.
Yeah, we tried to add a little bit of playfulness to it, introducing some new elements and more playfulness up top and pushing and pulling the materials around and just adding a random pattern to it to make it more interesting for that elevation.
Any other questions, comments about the updates from meeting 1 to today? I see a hand up and that is,
Commissioner Berkey.
oh, okay, thank you.
That's me. Mia, I'll be real brief, and I said this, offline, but I concur with Leo's sentiments, and I'm just delighted that, we've made improvements with the architecture, and his comments from the previous meeting were received so well, and that we've made so much progress on that front. So I would hope that the applicant would consider some of what he said tonight as well. Me not being in architecture, this is not my expertise, but I certainly value his input, and I think it's had a significant impact on the overall design. So I'm very happy to see that. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's go ahead, Steve. Steve.
Just as someone who lives in the area, I'm very pleased with the improvements to the facade.
Thank you.
Sure. And the landscaper, that's later.
Anything else about the project updates before we go on into the housing?
I was just gonna say, the canopy does indeed, I got carried away to the landscape part of it, but going back to the architecture, it does indeed sort of fit better with the building because it's sort of more in the same proportion. So that's the canopy point I wanted to make, and I.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to the SAHPD and housing. Questions, comments? I'll say it once.
Eric has his hand up.
Yes, Eric, and also.
This is Sabrina, if you were listening, we would like to have you hold your comments until public comment,
Thank you.
but your name is on the list.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Eric, go ahead.
Thanks, Nia. I think this is probably for Hector. Can we'd mentioned the tenant relocation. I don't think we talked about what that sort of looks like. Can we briefly go over how that would work in kind of mechanical terms for folks?
Well, the tenant relocation will be a condition of the plan, and it basically states that the developer will relocate the tenants either temporarily or permanently and help them with locate new place to live, help them with moving expenses, either directly with the moving or through a relocation payment that it's fixed by or relocation guidelines. The plan is presented to the Tenant Landlord Commission. The commission reviews and votes on recommending its approval. If it takes two steps. First is to present the plan to the commission, then the recommendations are taken, and in the next meeting, it could be approved if the recommendations are followed. Once it's approved, the recommendation is sent to the county manager or his delegate, in this case, the housing division director, and if he will review it and approve it. Once it's approved, a letter will be sent to the developer saying that the conditions has been complied, and then he can proceed.
And if I can follow up, how many households do we estimate this may be affecting? Because I'm under the understanding that there are a number of units that are already vacant. I believe that's correct.
The Ellis Arms is currently vacant. That was the building that was part of the prior site plan approval. The Williamsburg Apartments is the new addition to the site plan. Tyler, how many tenants do you have?
12.
We have 12 occupied units in the Williamsburg out of 14 total. We have 2 vacant. Okay. So it's 12 households.
Great. And then, yeah, if you can just indulge me, maybe Nick, you can speak to this. What's the communication been to the current residents thus far?
Go ahead. Core family.
There's been flyers that have been placed in these.
Yeah. And we're, going to be meeting with them, speaking to them, and I'm planning to give Hector a draft of our tenant relocation plan well in advance, and probably as soon as next week, because we have one ready for him to review. So as soon as the case is actually approved, then we'll be, hitting the ground running as far as getting that reviewed by staff formally and putting it in front of the tenant landlord commission.
Great, thank you so much.
I have a question. So, because I don't know this process. So for those 12, can they apply to come back?
They absolutely can. With the timelines for construction and everything, it's not necessarily realistic that everybody's going to come back. There was a big discussion with the last approval here regarding the ability to dedicate those units essentially to those individuals and reserve them. And I don't think there's a mechanism for that within the county. I think housing staff would confirm that that's not realistic. But I believe there are provisions for right of return or something in the plan.
Yes. Even though it's a permanent relocation because of the timeline, then they have the right to request, or they are giving the first choice to return.
So they do get first.
A lot of tenants decide to return. Some of them decide not to, depending on the condition or where they end up living. But they're always giving the option, and it's in the plan that they will be given a notification that they can return to the plan. And if they do, they will be held the same way with relocation payment or relocation assistance.
And in this relocation, do we try to keep them in the neighborhood that they're accustomed to, or do we give them choices, or?
Yeah, so, Hector, you can help out here too, because I think.
Preferably, it will be recommended that they stay in the county. Of course, sometimes it's hard for them to get a place. They may choose to relocate outside of the county, but the relocation plan, in preference, will have them within the county and with the same status they were before. Staying in the same neighborhood, it's a little harder. It could be somewhere else in the county, but if they're in the county, it's better. Some cases, depending on the tenant, some of them move far away in relocations because they prefer it that way, but rarely they go outside the county.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask, but I did have questions about the CAFs, but I can wait if there's a better time.
I think it's time. Yep, go.
Okay, great. I'm noticing that you have 7 units of 1 bedrooms, 16 units of 2 bedrooms, and 1 unit of a 3 bedroom. I think last time we discussed a matter of supply and demand, whether people wanted a bigger unit or smaller units, and how hard it is for families to find sort of the larger units. And I'm wondering, given that conversation, did you have any further input, since I'm still just seeing 1 bedroom units, one 3 bedroom unit? And designating more for larger families.
Yeah, so we did, target the 42 bedrooms in total, but we leaned heavily in towards family-sized units. We consider this actually to be a lot of family-sized units, and I don't know how many total units we have in the 3-bedroom range, but it's not a lot.
Only 6.
Yeah, and giving up those 3-bedroom units is usually a very, very big deal for any developer. So we felt that this was actually kind of a win for family-sized units. Normally, what you're going to see is an even number of 1s and 2s. That would be sort of the standard approach to any one of these negotiations. So this leans heavily towards family-sized units, in fact.
Hey, we got one. Progress.
Well, we consider those 2-bedroom family-sized as well, obviously.
Just to say, Rayvon's overriding concern in the housing area is that current residents have the opportunity to be able to relocate, to return to the site, to the new building. It's great. This process really sounds great, and Stu Stein will be glad to hear about it. Just one little editorial thing. The amount of the affordable committed is the bare minimum according to the numbers in the plan. For example, Sedona Slate, actually, it's about 5%, 5 or 6% here. Sedona Slate, for example, provided 12 units that were 12% of the units were committed affordable. So it's, we're very pro affordable housing, and we always like to see more than just the minimum, but you're all within your rights to.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't characterize it as the minimum here. There are multiple different ways to achieve replacement under the policy, and it outlines as possible options, unit for unit, GFA for GFA, or bedroom for bedroom, and bedroom for bedroom was the one that got the most units. And so I think in this situation, the county actually negotiated successfully for the most that they could get under the policy. I think a GFA for GFA replacement would be substantially less. Melissa has her hand up, and I bet she has something smart to tell me.
Thank you. I wasn't aware of it.
Jim.
I may be not fully understanding how this works, and this is probably more for staff. Are these units going to be at 60 or 80%? What percent? And the units that are being replaced now, do we know what those rents are like, and what percentage? What's the equivalent of the existing units, the existing rents?
Adam, did you want to say something? Otherwise, we'll give it to
No,
Melissa.
I was just going to let Melissa could probably respond to both your question, Jim, and the previous one.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much. So I'm Melissa Danowski with the Housing Division. And in response to the first question, which was, I think, related to the bedroom replacement, I just want to note that Sedona Slate also used the bedroom replacement mechanism. So they had 92 bedrooms that were removed, and then they replaced it with 92 bedrooms. And then in the second question was, these community affordable units will be affordable up to 60% of area median income. I would have to defer to the applicant on what they're currently renting at now. But it is under 80%.
I believe they're slightly lower than what 60% AMI is here. I mean, just another point though is that a lot of these are pretty small 1-bedrooms. We're going to be moving towards, a different unit mix. It's a little bit of apples and oranges.
Yeah, I'm more wondering about what happens if people who are in the existing buildings want to then move into these. Will, even at a lower rate, will they be able to afford to move back?
That's a good question. I mean, and that's a question for Arlington too.
Right.
That's actually my question. I mean, what
if
if somebody's making? Because we as a community, it's to support the people that are only making a certain amount. We bought these buildings. We didn't income qualify these people. So what if somebody's making more than what if somebody else in the community needs that unit more?
Yeah, I know, these are marks. I understand that these are marks.
Yeah.
That
They're
we're going to replace. Right, I know. So I'm just, so I don't, that's what I was asking. Who lives in there and what levels, and could they, presumably, you're right, some people are underhoused in those, they could do better. But other people are, they may not be able to move up.
I think as a general statement, Jim, I think there's some parity to the rents. I think they'll be able to transition.
Okay, thank you. We can definitely go back.
Melissa, I don't know if you can speak to any resources that help people in Arlington who don't necessarily have the money to even afford a 60% AMI unit, and anything that you do that helps bridge the gap, or any other resources, if they exist.
Sure, yes. We do have resources, specifically housing grants. And so the units would be affordable up to 60% AMI. And so there's some eligibility requirements for housing grants, but certainly residents would be able to use housing grants to help provide a subsidy if they couldn't afford that up to 60% AMI rent.
So if somebody's coming back after having lived in this building and cannot afford 60% AMI, there would be potentially some resources available to help bridge the gap and get them to be able to afford one of the units in the two buildings.
Yes, and they actually wouldn't have to wait to move, back into the unit. We hopefully could connect them with resources sooner than that.
Thank you. Any other questions on this housing? Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Melissa.
Oh, sorry. Looks like Eric had Commissioner Burke had his hand up again. Sorry.
Thank you. Go ahead, Eric.
I got. Be real brief. Got it right into the wire. The affordability term, are those for 30 years, or how long are those for?
30.
Yeah, it's like it's the standard Arlington County commitment.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next topic: transportation. Comments, questions. Thank you. Go for it.
So I jumped in a little bit because I was really hoping we had more guidance about what the sidewalk width should be here on Fairfax Drive, because the whole 6 feet just didn't seem quite right. So this was a great excuse to dig into the 1992 Roslyn Sector Plan, which I have not spent a lot of time in, which seems to refer out to the RB corridor streetscape standards, which seem to call Fairfax Drive a B street and say it should have a 13-foot sidewalk. And I was just wondering if that corresponds with anything that staff has looked at, if that was a thing that was discussed or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, we did consider the older policies that apply to this site. We also considered the curb alignment really heavily. And actually, early in the process, while the project was, I think, in preliminary design phase, we actually sent them a revised curb alignment that matched what we wanted for the trail project across the street, which pushed it, further into the site than I think the applicant had anticipated. And so 6 feet is kind of the minimum sidewalk that we would want to see here. And that is, what they're providing, kind of considering that they are building their site where we want them to build it, so that we can build our trail project across the street where we want to build that in the future. So it's kind of looking at this a little bit more big picture, and finding a balance between the private development and the capital project that's coming along as well.
Chris, I'll add even more kind of candid color to it. We put everything on hold and discussed for about 3.5 months how to achieve everybody's goals. And it did cut significantly into the site after we had received information on what the streetscape would be earlier in the design of the bike facility, pet facility across the street. And it was fairly difficult. And I don't fault the county for it. I think they saw both this project coming and then the potential for the Roslyn to redevelop, and then began to kind of design the train while it was on the tracks to figure out what they needed for this facility, because both projects were going to essentially set the curb line. So that was difficult. You understand time is money in this industry too. And so it was really just tough, but we got through it and made a compromise.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I don't think we were considering the trail on the other side of the street when we were deciding that this was a B street.
Or even during
sidewalk.
Which also has significant capacity for travel.
Amendment.
Exactly. Yep.
I don't think even the first
No,
site
it was
plan
not, yeah.
wasn't considering this. So I think, because of this private development opportunity and knowing that the capital project was coming, actually pushed the capital project timeline many years ahead of the intended timeline. So I think, because they had to think about the design, they were like, well, we might as well keep going. So that's kind of the parallel path that the county project has followed as well.
And we're excited to see that multimodal path, by the way. I mean,
Next question is, I was looking at the bike rooms, and the bike room one looks fantastic. Props on everybody involved in that. There are 2 smaller bike rooms, and I was just wondering why, what the thinking is, and with it's like 2 smaller bike rooms on level 2 in the garage with like 8 racks or something in them.
Yeah, we're actually going through it right now, where there's a stormwater vault where the existing, the nice bike room is, and we're looking at moving that stormwater vault so we can expand it back and have them all in one spot, and it's right off that corner of North Pier, so you can walk right in. And so that's what we're looking at right now.
That would be great. It's like, why are these over here? Okay, awesome. I think that's all I got.
Joan.
Yeah, just some questions about EV charging. I know you're committing to the baseline, which really is only up to 15% EV ready. What are you thinking about in terms of looking towards the future and making sure that, as ownership of electric vehicles really grows? And I think there's some expecting that they could actually start growing pretty rapidly, so that you can actually accommodate full charging capability for anybody that's looking for it. Looking at ways of having everything at least charger ready, with conduits and that.
I think the total is, it's 4% ready and then 15% future.
Right, yeah.
So total of 19%.
Yeah, we tend to kind of recommend that developers think about 50%. Some jurisdictions actually require 100%. I think maybe percent could be sufficient. We also hope that car ownership also drops, and maybe you won't need all those spaces. But.
Yeah, and one other thing that we're looking forward to kind of doing here as well is we're looking at kind of having a fleet of EV vehicles, which we've done at some of our other projects. And in that way, we can kind of help reduce our parking. And then for people that have to have a second car or something along those lines, they can we'll have like 3 Teslas on the ready to go. They just pay an hourly payment and they can use it that way they need to.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea to have that fleet and reduce the feeling that you have to have your own car to have access to transportation. And, hopefully there's few times that you actually really kind of need it. But in terms of, again, you've got, parking, how if say, what happens if everybody that owns a car has an electric car? Are you going to be capable of handling that demand, or providing the charging capability for those cars?
We'll have some extra capacity on our transformers in order to accommodate some of it for sure. But like anything, it's challenging to understand really what's going to happen. Is there going to be new gas stations, right, that actually provide charging, or is it going to be all in a residential building, which is still yet to be determined.
Any other comments, questions on transportation, Leo?
I do. So I'm trying to figure out where the relocated bus stop is. So I have 2 questions. I think it's east of the east garage entrance. I think it's where the A is on the sort of landscape plan. And then it seems that between the planters, there's 10 feet. Is that enough for a bus shelter?
There's no bus stop.
So the existing bus stop there is for, I believe, Metro Bus Route 4A, which has been suspended. Okay. And there's no current plans for bringing that back online. And so at this point, we're likely not going to require a bus stop improvement on this site.
Can I ask that we revisit that topic? I mean, we're adding a significant amount of people that live here.
And we can look to see.
We're trying to encourage them to not drive.
And we can look to see if we can maybe preserve some frontage for a future bus stop.
Yeah. Okay, that'd be great if we could
see if there's a spot for that kind of close to where the existing stop signage is.
And plan for a shelter. That's so critical. Thanks.
Just what I want to say on behalf of the Rayvon board, they always dispute the low ratios, the 0.57 ratio. You've probably heard that before, Chris.
I have.
So I'm also chiming in on that. That's part of my role here. So especially in an area like this, which has a very congested parking situation, very difficult to find places to park on the street unless there's enough spaces in the garage. Glad to see guest parking.
So Rayfom is against the low ratio, is that your
Yes,
position?
Yes,
That it's too low?
Yes, there should be.
Just want to clarify.
Yeah.
Any other questions about parking, or about transportation? Seeing none,
Yeah, I have like to make a comment about what I see in the street. Tom Corn.
hey, go ahead. Tom, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah. I was impressed in looking at the site today, just how wide Fairfax is. It's enough to accommodate parking on both sides with generous space to in the travelway and so forth. And I mean, that's very good and pleasant, and it's good to have all that parking availability. But I'm on the other hand, the green space available in the median that the county is playing with adjacent to Arlington Boulevard is very narrow, and I'm assuming that they're planning on moving into that. I'm very impressed on the contrary. By the way, I'm very impressed what I saw happening on your side. It's easy to wish for more sidewalk width, but on the other hand, there is incredible width in comparison to what's there now. It's tripled basically, I think, in terms of the adjacency, the landscaping adjacent to the building, but moreover, the 6 feet that are mentioned between the sidewalk and the curb. One can only hope that the wonderful trees that exist there will be replaced by a really excellent planting bed and whatever else that can be done to get a quick growth of replacement trees there. There are fast-growing willow oaks and things that could do it, and perhaps join a similar treatment on the county bike path side. But these guys have done good on the landscape side. I'm impressed. I hope the county can make use of space we have to do the same on its side, and to continue with the parking that's there and expand if possible. That's my comment.
Thank you, Tom, and you kind of gave us a nice segue into landscaping and biophilia. Questions, comments, Jim?
Yeah, I also like the new canopy or the expanded canopy with green on top. I think that's great. I love seeing that in buildings. I definitely associate myself with Leo's comments about make sure that it's accessible, that it can be maintained, and that it doesn't just fall by the wayside, and that there's, and I know there's going to be a certain amount of engineering challenges there because the weight of the water and the soil and the plant is going to be a lot, because it looked like there are actually a couple of trees in the renderings. I wonder, whoa, how's that going to work?
We met with Vincent and with Laura Shaw, just me and Tyler and Sarah and her team, and went over all the plantings around the building and the canopy specifically as well, to talk about what we were planning, soil depths, you took a look at from Street View on Google, the precedent imagery that we used, we talked about a lot of this. So yes, we agree. That's been something that staff has raised. And so we've been looking at it too, and making sure that everybody's on the same page with the feasibility of what we've shown.
Great, because any way you can find to make it work, do it, because it really helps tremendously, I think. And it gives a certain distinctiveness to the building too. So I think all around it's good marketing for you, the building. So, I think it's a win all around for everybody. I also noticed though that, and this is partly landscape because it's how it looks in front, there's a lot of power lines going along the site. Are any of those going to be undergrounded as part of this?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
At no, at significant expense. We're going to be.
I know how really.
We're going to be boring a tunnel under Route 50 for one of them, so excited.
Yeah, so that's great because it always bothered me that along Arlington Boulevard there, we still have a lot of above ground power lines, how very urban Roslyn is and Ray Farm is, and there's still overhead lines along this major road. It's very jarring actually. Yeah. So helping resolve at least some of those, thank you. That's another real plus.
We didn't want to leave those poles up either.
Right.
So.
Yes. Hi. Yeah, I also just love the canopy. I think that it's going to look really, really great. And I appreciate that given how big the footprint is, the buildings and everything, that you've managed to get as much landscaping in as you have. I'm sure a lot of thought went into that, and I do appreciate that. I would hope that as many of the mature trees as you can possibly save, you will. And I really, really like to hear the continuous soil panels underneath the sidewalks. One of my biggest concerns, and I'm really happy to hear about the overhead wires, because this is a serious issue with any kind of tree. So you try to plant under wires, it's a disaster. But the other thing, given the drought that we've had, especially this year, and I think we can expect more of them, is there being anything done? Are you thinking about water at all to get to these trees? I mean, even if it were some kind of passive soaking hose type of things. I mean, it's like I see trees planted all over the place. We get hit with a couple months like we've had with no rain, and they are now dead trees. And the county does run around and try to do the best that they can with the water bags and watering and that kind of thing. But it's just a real issue.
So I can speak first while my clients prepare maybe any thoughts they have specifically on what they're thinking so far about maintenance, but we are obligated by the site plan conditions to maintain all the landscaping around the building. So we are, the ones who are responsible for keeping those trees alive. So I imagine, given that it is going to be somebody from the management team ensuring that they're watered, nothing's dying. It is obviously cheaper for somebody to water the trees than it is to replace them when the county comes out and says your tree is dead. So, I mean, Tyler, I don't know if you have experience with this.
Curb appeal and marketing, like Jim said,
Yeah.
It's important for us not to have dead trees.
Yeah, we don't.
Well, yes, but I think sometimes it's like when you think about it ahead of time, like how we're going to deal with this as opposed to after the thought, they're right.
Yeah, I mean, you have folks who maintain landscaping in your buildings, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And when we plant, we'll put gator bags on them.
Yeah, right.
Definitely.
Okay. The only other thing I was going to comment about was I'm glad to see so many native plantings and pollinator plants and all of that. That is really great. It looked, and this could be just because you're doing pictures, you pick the ones that are going to look the best. I think grasses are great. We have a lot of really great native grasses, but we also have an enormous number of really great native shrubs that are everything from sun to shade to small to big, and they also support a lot of birds and pollinators, and I just think they're really underused. I think people go to the grasses, they think trees and grasses for the most part, and then we'll put in some, milkweed and that kind of thing, which is great. I'm not knocking that, but I just think that if you talk to Vincent again, or go to the Master Gardener website, there's a huge amount of resources on there, and you might find some things that would really be very, very attractive.
Sarah's our expert, she's here, and then.
It's not unchangeable at this point.
Yeah, it's just
We
a
don't make any
suggestion,
calls.
you know, that.
No, I think it's a great suggestion. It's something that we've come to realize over the year that kind of reduces a little bit of maintenance as we incorporate more shrubs.
Yeah.
So it helps in a lot of ways. And I definitely like to incorporate more into even the street tree planters.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
And I'm not sure if I noticed from the renderings, and perhaps it's stated or shown elsewhere, but are we including butterfly pollinator plants, in particular the milkweed plant for the monarch butterfly? I'm just asking, we have an audience member who's very... We do?
We do.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. In some ways, it really should be incorporated on every project that we possibly can, given it's the only plant that attracts monarchs.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'm sorry.
I agree with all the positive comments, and I'm relieved to see how well and intensively you've landscaped things, because unfortunately the building has such a huge footprint that of the required trees that have to be planted on the site, only 50% are, as far as, at least as far as the May design, can be put on the site, and the rest would be paying into a fund, the tree canopy fund. And unfortunately, most of the trees that are awarded to homeowners in the tree canopy fund end up elsewhere besides Ray Farm. So someone will benefit from the others, but anyway, it's a very attractive proposal, and thank you.
We appreciate that. It was intentional from the start. Four Partners certainly cares about this sort of thing, and they expressed that by hiring a very good landscape architect. I think that Sarah's done a good job with this as well, so we're very proud of it.
Sarah, on the long street tree planters with primarily native plants, can you be more specific about what you mean by primarily native plants?
The current palette is primarily native. We do have some adaptive plants, occasionally incorporated lower sedges that can tolerate urban conditions like dog pee, which we've found to be a huge impediment on many landscapes. We do have street tree boxes here, or fences. So I think, looking at what we have, I think we could move to an exclusively native palette for the whole frontage of the building.
We do have a dog run on the roof, by the way, so it'll be everybody else's dogs. We plan for dogs.
You don't know that.
It's unfortunately a very difficult situation. Some projects, not necessarily all of them, and like finding the right plants that can tolerate it and not be rat havens or something like that.
It's Arlington. We have a dog for every person. I have 2 dogs. It's okay.
So, Joan.
Yeah, a couple of questions. First, again, I concur, given the big footprint of the building, you're doing a good job of trying to get landscaping. Kind of add on to, don't think just milkweed, think of pollinator plants from early spring to late fall. Certainly goldenrod, asters are host plants for a host of other insects and that, again, so diversity is probably as more the game, as well as focusing on a couple of particular plants. You had talked about, we talked about watering, and of course, you obviously want to keep things alive, but in terms of, and you mentioned a retention vault, are you looking at strategies that you could actually use to use non-potable water to water the plants, so that it kind of really better uses water resources?
So in other words, create like a cistern?
Yeah. I mean, if you're putting in a, right, yeah, and kind of designing that. And again, I think there's lead scores for not using any portable water for irrigation. So, basically, let's use the water that you can capture on site to keep the plants alive. And then the other one is, again, one of the credits for the green building incentive policy was reduction of urban heat island effects. Clearly, some of the plantings are designed to do that. Do you have is there a standard way of kind of measuring how this is impacting the urban heat island effect? And are you also looking at other materials in that reflective materials, and even just how the building is oriented in that, in order to kind of get those gains to make that a comfortable area, particularly as we're going into areas of increasingly high temperatures?
Laura, can you hear us?
Yes, absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Featherstone with Sustainable Building Partners. So for heat island effect, we're going to be following the LEED credit guidance for that. So we're going to be targeting at least 50% of the roof being a combination of green roof or possibly cool roof rated materials, potentially lighter materials. So we're going to be exploring a combination of that for heat island effect.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly associate myself with the comments that Commissioner McIntyre, did I say that correct? Has just said. I think, yeah, the water retention thing is really good. And sort of a little bit unrelated, I really want to appreciate the design team's site analysis. I think that's a really good thing for us to see, just to understand what the thinking is behind the decision. So I appreciate that and encourage developers and design teams to bring those to the table to help us understand the thinking behind the design.
Yeah, and I just want to make another comment. When Eric and I and Adam met with the team before this meeting to see some of the changes and things, I said, as a commissioner, when I meet with an applicant in an SPRC process, I usually look to other projects to say, okay, this one did this one did this is the standard. This is now the standard, thank you, for biophilia, and how we try, especially in the Roslyn corridor where most of the green stuff is on a roof where I can never see it. So really greatly appreciate the effort and what went into this. So it's really beautiful, and I do hope it can be maintained and sustained there. I think now we can go into community benefits. We've already talked about housing. We will talk about sustainability, construction. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just very briefly, if you were joining us, I think I have some folks online already signed up, but if you're in the room, you're a member of the public and you would like to speak, please come over and let me know your name and I'll add you to the list.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. So, sustainability, construction. Joan.
Number of things on sustainability is, first on the energy efficiency, I was a little bit confused. The staff report said 10% increase in energy efficiency over the baseline. We're usually talking of ASHRAE baseline of 20%, but I also know that there's different ways of measuring that. And the energy performance model was talking about exceeding 20 and actually opportunities of getting to 25% or more. So kind of a bit more of your thinking of where you're actually hoping to go. A similar disconnect between on the sustainability documents, the energy scorecard or the Energy Star. So it talked about 86%, where I realize you're going for the lowest that you have to go, which is 80%, but are you really looking, is 86 really the more likely goal that you're going to be achieving?
So your expert is up there on the big screen. She'll be helping us out.
Hi, yes. So for energy cost savings for LEED, we're actually targeting 20 to 25%. And so that's based off of ASHRAE 90.1 2010. So yeah, it's around 20 to 25%, but that is, still finalizing that right now.
And then the next, it was on electrification, is, again, the energy performance model indicated that there was a pathway for getting to full electrification. Particularly, it looks like it's primarily with the HVAC system that you're going just for a furnace for the DOAS, whereas we've actually seen projects come in using heat pump DOAS with auxiliary electric. There's also auxiliary gas, but obviously, we think buildings should really designed for the future, and the future has got to be all electric. So, where you're looking for to get to that all electric building, so that as the grid becomes cleaner, so will the carbon emissions for operating the building.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that as well. So right now, in terms of whole building electrification, we're doing all electric appliances, our hot water, we're doing in-unit electric resistance hot water. And also we do have electric heat pump DOAS. The ventilation is done through 100% outdoor air DOAS. It does have heat pump with gas backup. We have been exploring potential opportunities, but with this project, electric resistance requires significant peak electric loads that just cannot be accommodated at this time. And also they do have higher operating costs as well as source energy and higher greenhouse gas emissions. So we're trying to identify the most efficient pathway, and we'll continue to explore opportunities for electrification.
Just, go all electric.
Yeah.
You've got a pathway there, you go gas, you're stuck until you change. The other is actually with the hot water system going resistance heat, you'll actually get a huge bump in energy efficiency if you use a heat pump system. I know they're a little harder designed for in-unit buildings, but that again should be the way to go and would certainly save the residents a good bit of money on their hot water bills.
Yes, definitely. And right now with our current design, it is difficult to accommodate heat pumps just because of spacing as well as a potential cost if we were to do like a central system, but we'll definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah, and are you looking at the IRA tax breaks and that in terms of, does that, kind of especially any upfront cost differences?
There are a lot of opportunities for different tax credits that we can certainly explore.
Yeah, and then the final kind of set of questions is, first of all, really commend you for reusing the garage. That certainly is a huge savings in terms of carbon emissions by doing that. But more broadly, some additional information in terms of what you were doing for the the extra point in reducing the life cycle carbon emissions.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. So we're going to be performing a life cycle assessment, and we intend on meeting the LEED credit, which is the Building Life Cycle Impact Reduction. So we're going to be performing materials meeting throughout design, and that effort is basically us identifying potential areas where we can reduce embodied carbon. So we may potentially look at different insulation products as well as the potential for low carbon, something that we'll continue to explore. But certainly reusing the existing garage does actually help quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And there's also now, I think, a lot more information and materials coming out that are actually considered to be carbon negative. So look towards using some of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Liam.
I'll make a quick comment. This site is ideal for solar capture because you'll never have any construction or trees or anything be built in the middle of the Arlington Boulevard. So anything that you can do, even if obviously there's not enough solar panels that you can put to, electrify the building, but anything that you can do, even if it's feeding back into the grid, is still a contribution to the environmental, load that we're so it's just so ideal because no one's ever going to block your your sun exposure. So that I think is a huge opportunity.
Right now, we're targeting offsite, and those final elections are made during permitting, but I think that's probably more feasible with everything that we're trying to do on the roof and the construction type and everything else. Not that you couldn't do some panels, it's just we think that that's the best option at the moment. But understood.
Yeah, I think it is, and I'm really glad you're doing that. I think we are finding out that solar panels and plantings actually do go fairly well together. The other thing is by putting solar panels, you literally create shade on the roof, blah blah blah. So just keep that in mind. Yeah,
contributing offsite, centralizing it in a efficient facility. I mean, there's good things about both options.
No, yeah, and it's a scale thing. So I hear you, and this would be a sort of a pittance almost, right? It would just be like a little drop in the bucket. But at the end of the day, right, every drop counts.
Yeah. So we'll make a final election, but we did want to be honest with where we are right now.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments on Community benefits, sustainability, construction. Anybody? Okay. Seeing none, I think we're ready to go to public comment.
Sure, I will go ahead and share our list. We have 4 speakers signed up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And our first speaker is, giving them 2 minutes.
You can give them however long
Do you have time?
I can pull one up.
Okay. What time do we have?
It is 8:36 right now. So
Okay, we
have an
can,
hour.
yes, so we can give you all 3 minutes. Okay, and our first speaker is Jason Schwartz. And hold on just one second while we get the timer up, Jason, if you will. Welcome.
There's one on Google, so nope, it's trying to sell me stopwatches.
Yeah, right.
No, this isn't Google.
It's right there, Matt. It's right there below,
Oh,
actually.
here
It's
it
there.
is. Okay. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Let's go. Okay, Jason, you're on the clock.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Jason Schwartz, and I'm a resident in Radnor, Fort Myers Heights, living on Arlington Boulevard, so close by. I walk, bike, and traverse this site area a lot. So it's great to see this very nice building proposal. Of course, you know, as it really looks good as a nice podium base. You know, I really wish there was some towers there. You know, 20 story plus towers, but I understand. You know, concrete is expensive, and there's some metro work underneath, so the feasibility, not enough height allowable in the area plan to do that. But in any case, I think it's a great project, and I'm really excited to see it go through. You know, of course, I do wish for some more widths on the sidewalks, and of course, I always love traffic calming measures on the roadway, and making sure that pedestrians are safe. And in terms of parking, so Arlington is doing a parking performance pilot, and they published some of the early data. And in Roslyn, the peak occupancy in Roslyn, where they put in all the sensors and are looking at occupancy, is 61% at the peak. So there's really plenty of parking in the area. I mean, right by my building, there's tons of parking sensors as well. And there's absolutely just so much parking available at all times of the day. There's never a time when there's you know, even peak demand, there's 40% of the parking spaces are available. So tons of parking. Really love the building overall, and of course, really wish it could be, you know, double the size, and of course that would make it so that we could have more affordable units. But overall, really appreciative of this, and this is going to make the neighborhood a lot better. It's going to really be a big improvement and personally increase my quality of life. So I'm really excited to see this go through, and look forward to construction to start soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Future member of the planning commission.
And the next speaker is Alice Hogan. Alice. Alice, are you there?
Good evening. Can you see me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go
Thank
ahead.
you. I would like to echo some of Jason. Well, I'm Alice Hogan, and I'm with the Alliance for Housing Solutions. So I'm here about the housing component. I did want to echo some of what Jason was saying. It looks like a very attractive building, and we're so grateful that there'll be additional affordable units in the building. I did want to just ask a couple of clarifying questions and then make a couple of comments. With regard to the Special Affordable Housing Protection District, I just wanted to ask staff if that overlay then means that the affordable housing ordinance is kind of you know, taken over by this. So it wouldn't be that there's any more housing from a GLUP change because it triggers this special district. So I just wanted to ask about that. And then about circling back with the residents, it sounds like there are 12 households there, and flyers were put up because this is a marked property and one that hasn't been, you know, well necessarily the best maintained. We don't know the situation of those renters. And so I think, you know, it would be excellent if the developer or the county staff, someone could reach out to those folks, because as soon as they start hearing something's happening, that's when we risk eviction. And so with a zero displacement goal in Arlington, we need to act very proactively and not wait until the later dates when people have already made decisions and moved on, and then there's no getting a hold of them. So I'd really encourage some direct communication as soon as possible. Also, it could be in the site plan provision to make sure to keep track of these folks and have them have a first chance to come back to the building in a couple of years. So that would be another excellent way to retain those Arlingtonians and welcome them back to an amazing unit. And then lastly, I just wanted to ask if this is also going to the Housing Commission before it goes back to Planning Commission and County Board. And thank you for your time and for an excellent looking building.
Thank you, Alice. Adam,
Did
did
you
you
respond
want?
briefly?
Yeah, can you go ahead and respond briefly? Thank you.
Yeah, so just real briefly, first I will pass along the message about communicating with residents. Appreciate that comment. Yes, the figures we presented to you tonight in terms of the committed affordable units on site includes the base ordinance requirement as well. So I think that handles the main ones. And then again, please feel free to get in touch with me if you have further questions. We can relay those to our housing experts as well. I think Melissa had to jump off this call, but we can always get back to you with more information. Thanks.
Yeah, and Adam, can you also clarify, this will go in front of the Housing Commission?
Oh, I'm
correct?
sorry. Yes, this will go in front of the Housing Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Sabrina Movitz. Sabrina, can you go ahead?
Hi, thank you so much, everybody. I'm a member of the Rayfom neighborhood as well, and this is my first SPRC meeting, so it's nice to meet all of you. This looks like a great project, and so much thought has gone into it. About the 12 tenants, I wanted to foot stomp some things that Alice and Eric mentioned. From the public comment from the last SPRC meeting, it looks like $1,300 a month is really like the magic number that these tenants cannot exceed. So when it comes to relocation, I just want to keep that number in mind. Many people said above 1,300 I cannot afford. And I just wanted to also highlight, so up the hill, if you kind of cross Arlington Boulevard and go up North Fort Myer Drive, Bernstein Brothers Management has several apartment buildings. I used to live in one for a few years, and now I live on the same street but just one building down. They have several 2- and 3-bedroom apartments right now in buildings like the Nicole at 1209 Fort Myer Drive that are vacant right now, and they are currently renting at $1,000 per bedroom, and they're 2- and 3-bedroom family units with all utilities included and free parking spaces. Brian Michnick is the landlord there. I have his contact information, and I just want to kind of highlight that up the road there's a lot of options for relocation of those folks that could stay within that 1,300 limit, and I'm happy to share that information offline or contact Adam or whoever just to make sure that they stay within the bounds of that affordability. Thank you.
Please do send that to Mr. Watson and he'll pass it on to the applicant team. I do know that from the 2019 approval that did a lot of research on the surrounding buildings for my client then and found some similar results that there were some options. So I'm glad to hear that you're helping out as well. That'll all feed into the guidance that the property management team can give to tenants as they're looking at relocation. So
great.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Eric Goodman. Eric, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. So I have 3 things I'd like to speak about. First, the sidewalk. I am a little disappointed. The staff report talked about an 8-foot sidewalk and disappointed to see that it's going down to the very minimum here. I'd like to see it at least an 8-foot sidewalk. So I guess that's my first point. The other thing, I don't see that we've addressed pickup and drop off, both for like deliveries, for food deliveries, things of that sort for residents, and then also for people who are disabled, just to be able to service them as well. So I didn't see anything about that. That's a concern. The third item is with regard to the bus stop, even though there isn't a bus, I guess a active bus stop there now. To get to the metro, other options, that's a very steep hill. So folks with disabilities, it's not very easy for them to move around. So I think that needs to be addressed. I'd like to see a future bus stop there just for that reason. Otherwise, you're going to be focusing more on driving. So those are my 3 points. Thank you.
Eric, thank you. I think on the bus stop, that they're still talking about it, or we'll talk about it for the future. Just somebody want to briefly talk about pickup and drop off, just to answer his question?
Yeah, so we plan to have pickup and drop off as you pull in for Uber Eats into the garage. There's a guest parking. That's where we plan to have it. There's a temporary interim. We'll have some street parking, but then that goes away once the whole bike lane is built on the other side of the street. So that's our plan right now.
I mean, typically you would see if there were street parking in front of the building, that would be how pickup and drop off would be handled. Any sort of pull off or anything like that is not a design feature that the county ever supports. It's considered a suburban design feature rather than an urban design model. So some space within the garage right inside the entrance, I think, is the best solution.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so I think that concludes for tonight. For those of you who came in late, there is a sign-in sheet over there. They do want you to sign in. I haven't done that myself yet, so.
We know who you are.
Yeah, I was here. I was talking. Adam, do you want to talk a little bit about the process moving forward?
Yeah, sure, gladly. So the applicant will need to revise its 4.1 plan set based on the comments here tonight, and then other outstanding comments that we staff have provided to them. And once they turn that back into us, no sooner than 20 working days after that, we would be looking at going to the commission meetings, which would include, of course, Planning Commission, Transportation Commission, Housing Commission. So at this juncture, I would say we're targeting, and Nick, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like we'd be targeting January at the earliest. I will say that we are going to proceed with advertising the GLUP amendment to put note 16 on the map for the SAHPD in December, so that at whatever time the site plan is ready to come forward, that GLUP amendment can proceed concurrently with the site plan and the rezoning. So those are the next steps. That's the anticipated timeline. And I will keep this group apprised of any changes that occur between now and then.
Awesome. All right.
I hope you feel better.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
And thank you all for coming and participating. We appreciate
yes, thank you. So unless there's anything else, we will see you at the continuing process for this. And thank you all so much for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.